Everyone to the Ku-ring-gai Local Planning Panel meeting. On behalf of the panel, I'd like to recognise the traditional custodians of the land, the Ku-ring-gai people on whose land we meet. Ku-ring-gai Local Planning Panel meetings are held using conferencing technology. Today's meeting will be conducted over Zoom. Any persons speaking at a local planning panel meeting are advised that their voice and personal information, including name and address, will be recorded as part of the meeting and made publicly available on Council's website via live stream and on-demand access, except any part of the meeting that is held in closed session. Accordingly, you must ensure that your address to the panel is respectful and that you use appropriate language and refrain from making any defamatory statements or discriminatory comments. Ku-ring-gai Council does not accept any liability for statements, comments, or actions taken by individuals during a meeting of the Ku-ring-gai Local Planning Panel. People connecting to this meeting by conferencing technology are reminded that under the Local Government Act 1993, the recording of meetings by a member of the public using any electronic recording device, including a mobile phone or video camera, is not permitted. Any person found recording without the permission of Council may be expelled from the meeting. And just some points to note, on-demand viewing of each meeting will be available until the holding of the subsequent meeting, and recordings of the Ku-ring-gai Local Planning Panel meetings are copyright protected and cannot be reused or reproduced without the approval from Council. So just moving on to the business agenda, I just indicate that no apologies have been received today. And to introduce the panel, today myself, Cara Crayson, is the chair, and we have two expert panel members, Larissa Ozog and Greg Flynn, and our community panel member is Ian Arnott. Council has received any declarations of interest in writing from panel members, and there are none, but I just ask panel members whether there are any further declarations of interest that have come up subsequently.
Not for me.
Thank you.
Yeah, not for me either.
Thank you, Larissa.
None for me.
Thanks, Greg. Just ask staff, are there any declarations of interest?
No, panel chair.
Thank you. So each speaker will have 3 minutes to speak. Sound will be heard at the conclusion of time. We only have one speaker today, Mr. Lee Hughes. So there are no objectors or legal representatives here to address the panel today. So I'll just flip screens. Sorry about that. So Lee, when you're ready, I can't actually see you on the screen.
Can you
see? I can now. Yes, I can now. So when you're ready, well, there's a bit of flexibility today because there's only one of you. So if you need a little bit longer than 3 minutes, that's fine. And obviously the panel may ask questions after your address.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks for the opportunity to address you. The owners are extremely frustrated and, quite frankly, very annoyed at the process that we've undertaken. I feel like they've been taken for a bit of a ride by Council and that they have no intention of ever approving this development. We've had 2 workshops. First was on the 3rd of April with the team leader. We ran through all of the items that were raised in the first report, and I explained and showed how we were addressing each one of those elements. I was told we're heading in the right direction. The assessing officer was on leave at the time, so was not in attendance. So Mr. Sergol requested a follow-up meeting. When he returned, I minuted the first meeting and sent that back to Council and requested for any misconceptions to be pointed out to me. So as far as I understood, we were resolving each of these points. We had a follow-up meeting on the 9th of April with the team leader, with the assessing officer and the council engineer. There was no urban designer and there was no landscape representative at that meeting. Again, I went through each of the points raised. I explained that we've adjusted the scope of proposed works so that we're not affecting any works in 26A, and therefore there was no requirement for their approval to lodge the DA, and that was concurred with by council. I again went through all of the points. We raised the 4.6 variation on the floor space ratio, and I pointed out that if we take the whole of the land area, we were at 0.77 to 1, under the 0.8 to 1. However, on the R4 zone, we were slightly over the FSR at 0.84 to 1, which was a 6% increase in FSR. We discussed the reduction of the top floor. In fact, we changed the planning to move the platinum level apartment to the floor below, which allowed us to then reduce one of the front setbacks by 3 metres. We also set in some other boundaries facing the street, and we explained those. The assessing officer actually said that he was comfortable with the proposed modifications and the bulk and scale, and when I pointed out the articulation and the setbacks that we had achieved. We then primarily we discussed stormwater in an extensive fashion. I pointed out that we've reduced the impervious area of the site by 500 square metres, that we've reduced the discharge from the site by introducing an OSB tank and stormwater tank, that there was no need to do any work inside the easement, that we obtained CCTV film footage that showed water flowing from a pipe at the base of the easement shortly before Nola Road, and there was no ponding or flooding at the base of that easement. So we know that it's discharging. There have been no problems with the stormwater, and we're actually reducing the amount of load on that pipe. So we were actually very surprised when we read the report that the modification to the bulk and scale was not supported, when there was no issues raised in both of the workshops prior, and that we were given the indication that it was acceptable in the way that we've dealt with it. But the stormwater assessment incorrectly states that we need a new pipe. We don't need a new pipe. We've got an existing pipe that is functional, and we don't need, and we have video footage that shows to the extent that we could photograph the pipe, that it was in good condition, and that we have that CCTV showing the discharges at the base of our easement. We also were shocked to discover there are new landscape issues that were raised without notice, and again, without consultation during this assessment period. We fail to understand why this proposal is not in the public interest when it greatly reduces the overshadowing of neighbours, it substantially increases the landscape and deep soil planting, it significantly increases the street setback, it significantly reduces the stormwater discharge, it improves the safety of both 26 and 26A when exiting the site in their cars by increasing, by allowing for a separate lane. It also dedicates, it provides additional housing in an area that certainly needs it. It dedicates a road widening to the state at no cost, and we've had that valued in the order of $1 million. If the council's not happy with the bulk and scale that's being proposed, then there is an alternative to do a transport-oriented design, which will increase the height to 21 metres, doubling the height, doubling the floor space ratio to 2.5 to 1, and the state government will have to purchase the road widening if they ever want to pursue that road widening. We trust that the panel will look at the sense of this proposal, that the modifications that we've undertaken were made in good faith, and we've had a very strong attempt to satisfy council that the top floor numerical non-conformance is immaterial in terms of its perception from the street and the public domain, and that the articulation that we've undertaken with the facade is adequate, and that you recognise that even without this development, even without this DA, we have the legal right to discharge water from our site, and if the pipe ever breaks, we have the legal right to fix it. So it's immaterial as to whether we can demonstrate the water flowing or not flowing at the moment, because if it doesn't flow, we can fix it. And all the other points raised in the report can either be conditioned or we've satisfied. And we trust that that you'll be able to see through that. And I'm quite happy to take questions in more detail of any of those items.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hughes. All right, well, I'll head over to questions from the panel members. I'd just like to remind you before you answer that, I mean, you can hear the level of frustration you have, but please remain respectful in your answers. And no criticism of staff personally.
No, of course not.
So I'll just move firstly to Ian Arnott. Do you have any questions of Mr. Hughes?
I'd just like to understand a little bit further the stormwater issue from you. You have said that I didn't quite pick up everything. I'm having a little trouble hearing parts, but you said that that it did demonstrate, your CCTV footage did demonstrate that the pipe was adequate to drain the site. I think that's what you were saying, whereas my understanding is that the CCTV footage didn't fully demonstrate that, and also that there was an opportunity to do further investigation, which was to happen but cancelled at the last minute. Can you just respond to that, please?
Yes, of course. So we do have film footage from an oblique angle that shows water discharging from that pipe at the base of the easement toward Nola Road. We also have another piece of film footage that is right at the end of the pipe. We couldn't actually get to the pit because it was covered, and it's currently on or very close to a building site that is being undertaken with another apartment development.
Sorry, Lee.
Yes.
I'm having a lot of trouble hearing. I don't know if others are as well.
Yeah, we are. It's that there's a bit of an echo there. And
Okay. I shall try and connect.
So it's not just my age going down.
no, we could hear it, but it cuts out every.
Yeah.
I think it might be your internet connection because you're frozen now.
Okay.
Perhaps turn your camera off. That might help. Sometimes that helps. We'll just give him a minute. I think he's having some internet difficulties.
I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we've got the same. We do have the same issue. Is it saying that your internet connection is unstable, or?
No, nothing.
Okay.
That's better.
That's a bit better. Let's see how that goes.
Okay, so the pit at the end of the easement, just near Nola Road, was covered. It's got dirt over the top of it. We had arranged for that to be uncovered with council staff, but at that stage we'd already started to gain a bit of an understanding that maybe it wasn't just the stormwater that needed to be resolved, and that the bulk and scales issue hadn't gone away. At that point, the client declined to go and spend more money, another $5,000 in uncovering a pipe, when there was no guarantee that we were going to get the support of council for the scheme anyway. And they elected not to spend that money. If we hadn't have bothered, if the bulk and scale issue had been resolved, then, and we know that it's really just demonstrating that the pipe is flowing, then they would have undertaken the work. But why spend money if we're still going to get a recommended refusal anyway? So that's what they elected to do.
Sorry, so you were saying that you did have evidence that the water flowing from the site did flow all the way through the pipe to the pit, even though the pit was covered?
Well, it's through to the last pit in the easement, but not to the council pit. So we know that it gets to the end of the easement, and it's about 2 metres away from the council pit. And it doesn't pond, it doesn't flood. But I suppose the point that we like made is that we've demonstrated we've got a legal easement. We've demonstrated there's a pipe there that works. There are no issues at present. We're reducing the amount of discharge from the site, so we're actually going to be making any problems better anyway. If there was a problem, and if there is a problem, then we've got the legal right to go and fix it.
Thank you.
Can I just ask further on that point so was your intention to just connect to that pipe, not provide for a new pipe other than from your property to
Not
that
even
connection point, that 150 millimetre new kind of connection onto the existing easement, and that was how you were going to deal with stormwater on the site?
So the 150 diameter pipe
Yep.
enters our site, and we've got a
Yep.
pit wholly on our site. We can
Yep.
connect to that pipe on our land. We don't have to touch anything off the site at all. And we've had the stormwater capacities justified by council engineers. They're in support of the revised calculation, as it says on page 22. And we physically don't need to go off-site to connect into the pipe. It's at the right level that we can put our OSB discharge into it. So we actually don't need to do anything off-site. So if it's working now, it's going to work in the future.
So all the investigations you have done is really in response to council requesting to see that that easement is functioning, that it works, that no other kind of work potentially may need to happen, and roughly where that goes, where that
Yes.
connecting point is through whatever other properties have made transverse through. Okay.
Correct.
Greg, did you have any questions on this matter while we're on it?
Not on that particular matter, Madam Chair.
Okay. All right. Well, look, we might. Ian, did you have any further questions, or was that the only one?
No, I'll leave it for others at this point.
Okay. We might then move on to Larissa. Did you have any further questions?
I think the only one I was kind of, I want a little bit more just informational clarification was your right of way, and I know how you've changed the design to retain obviously the structures that are there so that you don't have to, and I appreciate that's probably the easiest solution at this point in time, not the best design solution, but the easiest. On that matter, I know now it's kind of divided the road, the access points.
Yes.
What was so firstly, I suppose there's the design and the functioning and the operation of that and how you see that working, because you've kind of got a division now with those ancillary kind of that fence or whatever. So is your intention that all the other, or 26A uses the existing right of way to come in and out? Can your property use to get out via the new kind of driveway that you've created to ease it? Like, how do you see that? Because that was the only thing I was a bit conscious there could be a bit of conflict going on. I know your intention now further to that is probably to extend the right of way to give everybody, but we then open up the potential of, well, there's a legal issue there and we don't have, So I'm trying to look at how you're looking at utilising that new arrangement and what the intent of it kind of is.
Yeah. So our intention is to actually create another right of way in favour of 26A that covers the exit lane through our site. So we're proposing that the entry lane is currently the driveway, so as it exists. So both properties come in that side of the road, and then they exit on the new right of way on our land. So there's a drawing in the DA set that proposes the right of way. As I think you've realised, we don't think it's a fabulous solution either. Our desire would be to get rid of all of that stuff and make the new right of way just a nice straight road with no obstructions, put a footpath on the other side, move the letterboxes, make it safer for 26 and what have you. The problem is that during this whole process, 26A have been, I suppose, a little obstructionist and putting their hand out for money and for whatever. And it was just, we were at an impasse. They weren't going to give us any of that approval to lodge the DA. Once we have an approval for the driveway, it's our intention to go back to them and say, look, we don't want this thing in the middle of the road. You don't want this thing in the middle of the road. We want to concrete the driveway. We want to do a whole lot of things to make it better for everyone. Now we've got an approval. You can either come on board and we can get this thing done together, or we'll just leave it like it is. And because we can still function that way. It's not preferable, but it's achievable. The traffic engineers from council have said that it works. There's no requirement for us to put a footpath on our side of the road, and yeah, they recognise that it increases the safety sightlines of oncoming traffic. So it does the job, but it's just not preferable.
Is the fence encroaching on your boundary? Is there 26A that, I don't know, it looked a bit like it might be, but that's a separate issue, I suppose. But so the question I suppose that we then have is that if your intention is to extend that right of way, you need the approval again of technically of 26A.
Yeah.
Unless, it's decided that the right of way doesn't formally get extended as such, that the works are on your site, but the right of way stays exactly where it is, and you can extend your site to cater for some of the driveway, but it doesn't form an extension to the right of way. It just works on your within your boundary.
Yeah, I suppose we were conscious that we needed to dedicate or create a right of way in favour of 26A to allow them to legally use that exit lane, if you like, and to formalise it, to let them know that we have good intentions, if you like. We don't cram all of the in and out traffic for 26A into a 4 metre wide driveway. It's not safe, and it creates confusion for our residents. And where do they exit? Do they just use ours? We wanted to get rid of all of that confusion and at least formalise an entry and an exit lane. But you're right that if we do want to simplify this down the track, we would then lodge a DA with 26A so that they could lodge the DA, and we'll allow it, if you like, to formalise that reconfiguration and get rid of the hydrant pump and of the hydrant set and the power pole.
I think it's probably more, Lee, in terms of the question was about if I mean, I don't know how much you've looked into the process of expanding the right-of-way and the consent that might be required, but understanding that if the right-of-way is unable to be extended, can your development function, even though it would not be obviously an optimum solution, can it still function if you don't get any consent that's required for such change or any of those legal matters resolved? Can your development still function using the existing right-of-way, where you might still have a driveway that you've proposed to allow the residents for your development to exit, but it may not rely on a formality? I guess that's the question we had.
So we're not proposing to alter the existing right-of-way at all. We're actually proposing to create a new one. So it would be a separate right of way in favour of 26. So we're not looking to adjust the current arrangement from 26A's point of view. So because we're creating a new right of way, we don't believe that we need the concurrence of 26. We can give them access to our land, irrespective of whether they want it or not. We can still say, oh well, we're happy for you to use this land to get out of your site.
So what happens if you create? I understand what you're saying now. Okay, but what happens if you create that and allow them to use your exit? Your intentions still seem to be that you want everyone, I understand why, to come in one way, including residents of 26 and 21, 26A, and everybody to leave through the other drive. But even if you give them a new right of way, you don't need their concurrence, as you've just indicated, I guess, what right do you have to stop them from still saying, we just want to use the existing right of way to come and go?
Oh well, look, that's fine, and we can just use that. We just won't build the outline. We can still use the right of way. It just means there'll be a pinch point of 4 metres.
Yeah.
But the status quo doesn't change. It just means, we could maybe we might put a passing lane on our side, if you like, so that we can pull up before the obstructions if someone was coming in, and then we can exit that through the existing driveway. I suppose we're just trying to make the thing safer, and I'd hope that they'd see sense and want to use a dedicated exit lane. But if not, then we'll just keep it as it is, and we'll all use the same driveway to enter and exit.
Thank you. Larissa, did you have any further questions?
No, I think we touched on, Ian, we all kind of touched on the basics is also an issue that's outstanding, that there's a bit of there's a difference in the basics assessment, and council, I think, believes that the landscaped area is less than what's shown on the basics certificate and may need amending.
Yeah, it was amended. I actually do have an updated basics certificate.
Okay.
It wasn't uploaded to the portal because during the assessment process, we actually had a bit of portal trouble in that I couldn't upload without council creating a request for information. When they created the request for information, I was able to upload the drains model and the stormwater and all of this sort of stuff. And that's when I uploaded. But prior to that, I uploaded the basics certificate. But because I suppose it wasn't a big issue, or I didn't have a dialogue about the basics with anyone, I didn't realise that it didn't get uploaded. So if there was a response to upload it, I could upload it. But we did have it corrected to get the common taps put in, and they're shown on the drawings. You can see that we've got 3 common taps. The wash bay is on the drawings, and the lawn area closely reflects the areas on the drawings as well. So I think that matter is resolved.
Yeah, okay. And that's kind of it. I suppose the only other thing was, if you could just give me, we had a bit of, well, I've kind of been thinking about, obviously, the floor space. It's an issue we're looking at, and I'm assuming what you're basically saying is, what your clause 4.6 is saying, that there's no amenity impact, that, you've got a big floor plate at the moment and floor space, and you don't see the need to set in the upper levels. By setting them in more, that upper level, what does that do to your design? Have you just kind of explored that in any capacity, just to?
Yes, I did. It would certainly affect the number of units that we've got on the site. We can't move the lift or the fire stair in because it will then not go in the basement.
Yeah.
We saw that that the side elevations on the southern side, we have no one looking at that. From the adjoining neighbour, they've got highlight windows just for solar access. All of their habitable spaces face sideways, so there's no real perception from the street. It's an oblique side elevation, so the bulk and scale isn't really an issue from the public domain. On the northern side, we do set it in quite significantly on the northeastern corner, the closest to the adjoining neighbour. It's certainly well set back from the rear of the site. The shadow diagrams obviously demonstrate that it's a far better solution than currently exists on the site. The floor space, I think the council report's incorrect in that we calculate the existing floor space to be certainly in excess of what we're proposing, 250 square metres greater than what our proposal is, and it's spread out across the site. So I'm not sure where they got their figures for the existing floor space.
Okay, thank you.
Just the articulation on the facade, in the submissions back to council, I included some 3D, images from the street to demonstrate. It's highly textured. The top floor is set back. It's a different colour, so that layering of the facade is there, and it has to be fully compliant, has no real material effect on anyone. Plus, we're dedicating a lot of land. we should get, if you look at the whole site, we're under the 0.8 to 1. We're 0.77. We're well under the permissible floor space. But it's just we can't apply the floor space of the SB2 land. We're giving away.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. That's probably it from me. Thanks, Cara.
Thank you. Okay, Greg.
Look, I think everything's been covered. Just on the issue that Larissa raised, your clause 4.6 argument about that the impacts of deletion of one top floor apartment. It doesn't compliance mean a potential decrease in size of 4 units from 88 to 72 square metres each, or deletion of one and provide 3 units at 95 square metres? That's potential. But your argument basically just deletes one. So have you done? Yeah, I think Larissa asked that. Have you done those sort of sums to have a look at what it looks like?
We did, but it did delete an apartment because we can't get the bedrooms and the living spaces alongside each other,
Okay.
Which essentially it just deleted it.
Okay. Yeah, all right. Okay. No, I've got nothing further to ask, Madam Chair.
Okay, thanks, Greg. I just wanted to go back to the stormwater issue and just ask, on the plan, what's the plan? I don't know if it's got a reference number.
Mm-hmm.
Prepared by Random Primer.
Yes, that's the landowner.
Sorry?
That's the landowner.
Oh, that's the landowner. Okay, you know which plan?
Oh,
Sure Search. It's the source.
Yes.
Sure Search diagram.
Yes.
On a number of points on this plan, it has an arrow that's pointing to the feed, but it has in brackets assumed. Could you just explain what that is? So it looks like it's from where it goes from Nola Road up to the point of probably the boundary with number 4 McLaren Parade, and then even the diagonal across number 4 McLaren Parade also got assumed there. Could you just explain that a little more, please?
So they went to site twice to carry out the investigation. On the second time, they were able to discover an inspection opening at the boundary of 4 McLaren. But the CCTV that they use is a tractor, and it can't navigate anything more than about 30 degrees. There's a bend in the pipe, so they weren't actually able to get into that pipe to know exactly what direction it was heading. But they were at least able to check that there was water flowing through that inspection opening, and that video is in the report. So that's why they said, well, we've tipped water in up here, and we can see it flowing through the inspection opening, so we know it's the right pipe. And then they've got the other video feed at the end of that pipe down near Nola Road, where the water's coming out there. So they're saying, well, it's logical that the water's here and it finishes there. It's still the same pipe. So it's just they weren't able to get into that pipe to do the CCTV.
Okay, so when we look at those outlets or pits down at Nola Road, yes, it's showing that it feeds into, it's saying buried concrete lid pit at Ku-ring-gai Council stormwater, and then it's showing to the left of that possible redundant pit. So in terms of the tests, are you saying that it was evident that the water was flowing through to the one that's specified Ku-ring-gai Council stormwater outlet?
It's covered.
Oh, okay. So that's what you were going to check, was it? But then you decided not to proceed with that. Is that right?
Yeah. And I suppose, if this was an issue, if it was the only remaining issue, we wouldn't object to having a deferred commencement clause put into the approval that says, well, before you can work, you've got to prove that this pipe is in good condition, and that would then give at least the owners the surety that they can say, well, okay, we can spend another $5,000 in uncovering this pit and filming it and fixing up whatever needs to be fixed, if anything, because they've at least got the surety of an approval. But at this stage, because there's still ambiguity as to whether it's going to be supported, but I think the discussion was, I'm not going to spend the money. I may as well put it toward lawyers in the Land and Environment Court. And I thought, I'm trying to keep it out of that. But
all right. And with that feed that that's shown on that plan, highlighted in blue, is that located completely within the easement?
We believe so. We believe so. I mean, the easement's been created for a specific purpose of draining our lot. So we'd expect when it was constructed that the pipe would have been in the middle of the easement.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any further questions on that. So panel, anything else pop up, or are you right if I close the meeting for deliberations? No further questions?
No further questions, Chair.
Okay. Well, Mr. Hughes, thank you for addressing the panel today.
Pleasure.
And for your comments. I'll now formally close the meeting. So the panel will now retire to deliberate on the item, and our decision will be posted on Council's website normally within 48 hours of the close of the deliberation meeting. Okay. So thank you, everyone. I'll ask the panel now if they can leave this meeting and rejoin the separate link in the determination meeting. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.